I got my 55-gallon fish tank set up. I'm just now switching over my big Picossus here, so maybe in the next couple hours he'll be ready to go. This is Miss McCabe's room. Anyway, trying to get it all in here. So I have set up this fish tank. Many people want to know why a fish tank, right? And so the best possible answer for that is, as we go through the biology unit, there's a lot of topics that go along with a fish tank that I can show the students with biology. And so like today we are studying natural selection, and the best, visual is for these fish, and I'll show those to you. The fish actually work out really well, and I can show them year to year, or even sometimes, in months, different baby fish actually are better fit for survival. Okay, and so if you look over here, I've got the babies here. I've got about 5 or 6 babies in this little net. And so I'm technically, I guess, naturally selecting them myself, aka if I find them before the other fish eat them. I put them in the net and we raise them, and they can see the development, fish development, also, of them going from little baby fry to a full-grown fish. And also, we can talk about symbiosis. We just talked about that last week, how different fish can live together and everybody benefits. We can talk about competition, so population competition. And so that gets to, how many of the different species are able to survive based on the competition in the tank, and how well the symbiosis works between the species. And then that kind of leads way into genetics. And genetics, we can talk about, dominant recessive traits, species variation, mutations in the DNA. Just the other day, the students pointed out that one of my male fish in here, I don't know if I can find him, per se. He's back in the back there, and they're like, Miss McCabe, he's blue. Why is he blue? We haven't seen a blue fish before, and he's all blue. And so we realized that it was a shadowed trait. So the dominant traits were actually shadowing over it, but when he got the recessive alleles allowed him to be blue. And so he's all blue, and he sticks out really well, and I hope he passes on those genetics to his offspring. But we can see, what's dominant and what's recessive, and sometimes we have different mutations that pop up, and we talk about them, and the kids are like, oh, how did that happen? And so, when you talk about genes and alleles and different chromosomes and what could happen, it makes a hands-on visual experience of something that the book talks about in their science textbook, but they can't really grasp it until they see it firsthand, and so that really is a good technique, something that happens, every year in science. We see different things in the fish tank. And then we get to ecology, right? And so there's a huge ecology part where you're looking at, the organisms that are living in the tank, all of the bacteria that are in the filters. The algae is working for photosynthesizing microorganisms. It's feeding the algae eater. My pleco, my Plecostomus, and he's huge. He's actually down here. I'll show you a video of me setting up the tank after this, to show you exactly how big he is. He's probably, I would say, maybe 9 inches long right now. They say they can get up to 2 or 3 feet, but we'll see how big we can get him. Right now he's about probably 9 inches. And so at that point, we're talking about food sources for him. What are the possibilities? What are the different environments they like to live in? And then we can talk about the wild. If these fish were out in the wild, what kind of environment do they prefer? How well does it match up to the fish tank in my classroom? And then we kind of do a saltwater versus freshwater talk, you know, all the different species and organisms that live in saltwater versus freshwater. And then that kind of leads to, you know, fishing, you know, all the conservation officers, and there's laws that you have to abide by for fishing. And so we talk about, you know, what's the role of a conservation officer, and if they go fishing at Site M here in town, well, it's right outside of town anyway. If they go fishing out at Site M, then, you know, how many of each fish and what are the size specifications that they need to watch out for. And if they go to the river, what kind of fish they might run into in the river. You know, Asian carp right now are a huge invasive species. And so they're always around here, you know, Beardstown, they're always going to run into Asian carp on the river. They're even starting to run into black carp on the river, which you know, the state's offering money if you catch one of those and kill it. But then we got, you know, we talk about the largemouth bass, the smallmouth bass, the different type of bluegill, you know, stuff like that. So don't put off using a fish tank in your classroom, because it does have a purpose. All right. Thank you, and have a great day.